Yeah, so my number three is a college film. So I'll start with college, maybe going backwards then. So my college film is PCU, film from 1994. This is directed by Hart Bochner, starring Jeremy Piven, Chris Young, Megan Ward, John Favreau, David Spade, and Jessica Walters. It's a pretty stacked cast there. Plot summary from IMDb: a high school senior visits college for the weekend and stays at the wildest house on campus. So this is a film that I actually watched a lot on cable TV when I was in high school, and it
Ah,
helped sort of give me an impression of what college might be like, in terms of what it was like to be on college, what college campuses were like. So this film really kind of set a idea in my head, at least, of what that was actually like. And I actually ended up going to a school very different than the one depicted in this film. So this film takes place in a looks like a liberal arts school in like Connecticut or Rhode Island or something is kind of the vibe they have there, which is a lot of the schools I was looking at as well, and thought, oh, maybe I'd end up at a school like that, but ended up going to a large university. But why I think this film actually speaks to me in a lot of different levels too is what it captures, for me at least, what it was actually like to be in college, or at least the memories I have of college, the moments that I think back to. So this film takes place over like one day. So it's a kid, a high school senior coming in, looking around and seeing, kind of like thinking about visiting the school. So again, I kind of felt, just a little preppy kid coming in, jumped in and seeing what college is like. So identified a lot with that character as a high school student.
mm,
But as he's going around the campus, he's, seeing all the different, groups of social cliques around school, seeing what it's like to kind of like live in these dormitory slash fraternity houses. So all of this stuff that that he sees here, none of it is actually academic. So it's not like there's any scenes that take place in a classroom and there's people
no.
talking about, oh, like I have to cram for this exam, or there's a really funny side plot of a guy who's doing his thesis on this thing called like the Kane Hackman theory, where there's why is there always a movie like on TV at any time that's either starring Michael Caine or Gene Hackman? It's like that kind of funny stuff. So there's references to those things, but there's nothing academic. It's all just a bunch of people kind of like hanging around with their friends, chilling. And that is actually what, for me, the college memories I have. It's not of what I learned in school or remembering back to a particular class or a teacher or some big moment in terms of academics. It's a lot of this hanging around, talking to my friends, doing crazy stuff, going to some parties, but more often than not, just kind of like hanging around. And I think what this movie does is captures a lot of like these students in the film are just hanging around, and the really thing that they're trying to do is like save their dormitory by just planning a big party. So it's the thrust of this film is actually nothing to do with academics. And again, like for me, that actually is not what I remember, at least, about college. I mean, yeah, I took classes and earned a diploma and everything, but it's not like those are the things that I look back on fondly or the things I feel like actually shaped who I am. It's more about the people I met and the stuff that the people I hung out with and all the different things that I did in the school. So it's more about the people, which is what in this movie is basically the focus of it. And definitely there's a lot of truth to there's a line in the film that I think is definitely this is what college is about, especially freshman year, where Jeremy Piven, who's the senior, or maybe he's been there I think 7 years, he says,
Yep.
is talking to the pre-freshman and saying, okay, this is college, so beer, it's your best friend, drink a lot of it. Classes, nothing before 11. Girls, you're a freshman, out of the question. Do you have a car? And the kid's like, no. He's like, okay, great. Find someone on your floor who has a car and be friends with them. It's like, actually, that really just is the best advice you can give to
Pretty
any
true.
college freshman. I mean, for sure, because I came to school without a car, and it's in LA, so you have to find someone with a car. So that was definitely like a bit of advice that I heard too. So I'm like, oh, this is exactly what it was like. And then two, I think what this film does, in a comedic way, is it sort of shows that, yeah, part of being in college is you meet a lot of different people who you never would have met or hung out with in high school, but that these people do, like, you start to form kind of cliques and groups where, yeah, like you came to school and maybe you never be exposed to this kind of person, but you hang out with the people that are your people. I was
Hmm.
a film nerd, so I hung out with all the other film nerds. Even though, there are other types of personalities and different cliques that are on my campus, but eventually kind of gravitate to those sort of isolated communities, essentially. And this film satirizes that with having the all the womanists, they're called, so like the feminists together and like the
Hmm.
gays together and the African American, like Black Power people together, and the ones who care about the environment. Like they kind of make fun of that, but that is a lot of what I at least found in college, where after especially freshman year, you start finding your group and you stick with your clique, and that's sort of how you then go through the rest of rest of college. So, I think that's why, the movie's very silly. I still find it very funny, and fun to watch. But, those are really the things to me that spoke to me as someone who was in high school looking at college. I could see myself through the protagonist, and then, the fact that college is basically just a bunch of hanging around, or at least that was, or the things that I remember, at least they're just a bunch of hanging around and just chilling and having a good time. So yeah, it's PCU.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd never seen or heard of this movie before, but I was very glad that I watched it. It just was a great time just watching it. Yeah, everything you said resonates with me as well. Like when I look back at my college days specifically, I just remember all the dumb shit we did.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically that. And the stuff that wasn't dumb shit at the time because it felt really important. Like, oh, we are in a whatever clique or whatever group you're in, you're doing something, a project or what have you. And of course, in hindsight, it probably was all dumb shit. But in the moment, it felt like, oh, this is very important. Like this is all I live by. And I'll get to that in one of my picks. But the thing that struck me was actually two things. One, I was kind of envious of the protagonist's journey of kind of visiting school and seeing what it feels like, which I know is a very common thing to do in the US. We didn't have that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
You sort of applied and you got in, and that's what you could go and, sit in classes, but it's not something that people really did.
Oh, interesting.
I wasn't aware of that. And then, of course, moving here for grad school, I'd never even been to the US, which is still crazy. And I think about it, that I just showed up 2 days before grad school started, in a brand new country, which I would not recommend to really anybody. But I mean, I guess it worked out. But
right.
At that, when I was there, I was like, oh yeah, have you been here before? Like, yeah, we were here like months ago, with family, walking around, experiencing what it might feel like. So I don't know, it kind of reminded me of my feelings of feeling envious and kind of missing out on that experience, so that you're not really there, but you can still experience what life looks like, which I think is pretty valuable. So
yeah,
I kept thinking about that. And then the second thing was like how relevant all the cliques and the movements that they talk about are in society right now, and it's almost like all these cliques and movements have sort of taken a much bigger shape outside of just colleges and educational institutions into our mainstream society. That's sort of what the online dialogue looks like, that everybody is sort of in their own, I don't want to use the word clique, but in their own kind of movement that they're passionate about, and they're driving everything about that. And then there's all this interesting conversation and drama that erupts because of different groups kind of colliding. So I thought that was very interesting and relevant. It almost felt like this movie was written today,
Yeah.
And then it sort of, brought up those thoughts that, I mean, maybe uniting for, a big party to save your dom is probably a very simplistic notion. But it did make me think that ultimately people are people. You start your journey with some sort of isolated view of who you are, the clique you hang out with. But when you have moments like the party in the movie where you do hang out with each other, ultimately people aren't that different, and there's always something that you can connect with each other. So yeah, I don't know if they were going for that kind of, larger sort of moral story or what have you from the movie, but it did land on me like that. And maybe it's something that if I had watched during my college days, would have been more open perhaps to, and I think I was, let me take that back. I was not the clique person, actually. Not in college, definitely not in grad school. I moved through lots of different circles. I never sort of really, signed up for one thing only. So, but this movie kind of reminded me of the power of that, and made me feel like, oh, maybe I should have done more of this. Maybe I should have reached out to even more people who felt maybe more extremely different to me and found common ground. So I don't know. I had a lot of good fun watching it, but it also was thought provoking, which I was not expecting this movie to be.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a speech that Jeremy Piven gives. So when they throw this party at their house, everyone then goes out and protests. So there's all the different cliques protesting outside for various reasons. And he gives a speech to like his people, like, look, we're all the same. We're young. We have raging hormones. Like they want to party too. They're protesting, but it's a cry for help. And they want us like feed us drinks, get us laid, give us a good time. Like he gives that speech, which is fun. But yeah, it was like interesting too, like watching this movie, like now, just as you said, in this culture that is even more like bifurcated and balkanized, or however we want to call it, especially with the social issues thing. That what I do like about this movie, to analyze it on a political level, is that the administration is the bad guy. So like Jessica Walters is the administration. In all these college movies, it's always because after Animal House, they always have to fight the administration. Yeah. But what the administration is doing is they're purposely sowing divisions between these groups. Oh, if you're offended, fill out this form. Hate your fellow student. Yeah. Right? And at the end, they all get together to have solidarity. And our common class here is student. Yeah. Forget the fact that you're the hippie one and you're the pothead one and you're the jock one. Forget that. We're going to fight the administration and / the conservative. I like how the conservatives are also the villains too. Like the white fraternity of, David Spade. Like they're not part of this class solidarity. They're the ones being fought against. So there is this message of like, hey, to defeat the administration, to defeat the conservatives, you have to band together, put aside your differences, find that commonality, and then that's how you win. So I do really like the political message of this film too. Yeah. But it's very fun.
I totally agree. All the preppy conservative fraternity guys would sort of join, the masses, because that would have sort of felt more real. Because people are people. You find crazy people everywhere, but I that would have been kind of a fun thing to see.
Sure, though,
like the dumb one from that group.
Who gets hit in the balls at the end?
Right,
that guy. Yeah. But see, I actually kind of like, because they were part of the problem too, in a way.
They were.
Because they didn't see themselves as they saw themselves above everyone else. And that's why I do actually like that the film is saying, no, that's wrong too. You cannot join us. You're not, you're getting chased out by everyone else at the end, like David Spade is. But it's a very fun movie. Very quotable. Just one of my favorite lines in any movie is when Piven is talking to Jon Favreau and he's like about to go to this concert. He's wearing the name of the band on his shirt. He's like, you're wearing the name of the band on your shirt to the concert you're going to go to. Don't be that guy. Like, I still quote that all the time. And anytime I see someone at a concert wearing the shirt of the band that I'm at, I'm like, you're being that guy. Don't be that guy. Anyway, it's a great film. Glad you liked it. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.